Hello. Today, for Accounting Research and Communication, we will be learning about APA style. We're going to cover APA writing style notes, in-text citations, and references. For APA style, you must use 1-inch margins on the top, bottom, and sides of your pages. To be sure that you have 1-inch margins, you can refer to your ruler in Microsoft Word, or at the top, you can click the Page Layout tab and then select Margins. For all research manuscripts, everything should be double-spaced, including your references. For double spacing, go to the top of the page, click on the Home tab, and in the Paragraph section, you'll find the Line Spacing option. Click on that, and there you can find 2.0 to select double spacing. Also, you must number all of your pages. Page numbers should be located in the upper right corner of each page on your header, and they should be right justified. In order to do this, double-click on your header, and a new Design tab will come up. Then you can click Insert Page Numbers, and there you can select the correct page number format. New paragraphs are indented 5 to 7 spaces from the left margin. This can also be done using the default tab key on your keyboard. The body of the manuscript is left justified. However, for headings, there are 3 different levels. The first level of heading is centered in boldface. The second is fleshed all the way to the left, and it is also boldface. And then the third level is fleshed left but indented, and it is boldfaced and period. For the entire manuscript, the required font and size is Times New Roman and 12 point. Some writing notes for APA style is to avoid referring to yourself unless absolutely necessary. For example, do not say "I think" or "in my opinion." The writing is already considered to be your thoughts and opinions unless you include a citation or another author's work. Therefore, you do not need to refer to yourself. And finally, avoid contractions. All words should be spelled out fully. Next, we're going to talk about in-text citations. APA style requires the use of past tense in signal phrases. The signal phrase is what you use to introduce cited material. When including a quotation from an author's work, usually the quote is introduced with the signal phrase, and it includes the author's last name followed by the year of publication in parentheses. The page number is in parentheses after the quote. The next bullet includes a great example of doing this. When you're summarizing or paraphrasing another author's work, you include the author's last name and year in a signal phrase or in parentheses following that information. The page number is not required, but you can include it if the work is long. The next bullet is an example of how this is done, but remember the page number is usually not required. Now, if you have to cite more than one author, there's a few different ways that you cite it in the text. If there's just 2 authors, you use both authors' names at all times in the text. In parentheses, you use the ampersand sign, and in the signal phrase, you use the word "and." If there's 3 to 5 authors, the first time you cite the work, use all authors' names in a signal phrase and in parentheses. However, for all of the citations after that, you just use the first author's last name and et al. However, if there's 6 or more authors, you use the first author's name followed by et al. All times in the text. Now, there's a couple different author variations to be aware of when citing work in your text. Sometimes the author will be unknown. In this case, you use the work's title in the signal phrase or give the first word or two in the parenthetical citation. If the work is short, such as articles or chapters, the title is put in quotation marks. But if the work is long, then the title is italicized, such as for books or reports. The next bullet shows a great example when citing a short work from an unknown author. Sometimes the author of work is an organization. In this case, you name the organization in the signal phrase or in the parenthetical citation for the first time that it's cited. If the organization has a familiar acronym, Include it in brackets the first time it's cited, and then you can use the acronym from then on. The next bullet shows an example of how to do this. When you have authors with the same last name, use their initials in the text to help differentiate between the different authors. If you have 2 or more works by the same author in the same year, you add lowercase letters to the year to be able to differentiate between the different works. And finally, when you're citing more than one work but in the same parentheses, put them in alphabetical order separated by a semicolon. When including quotations in your text that is less than 40 words, begin and end with double quotation marks. This is then accompanied by a parenthetical citation before the last punctuation of the sentence. Ellipsis marks are good ways to shorten long quotes, such as the following example. When you have long quotations of 40 or more words, then they are indented 5 to 7 spaces from the left margin. Do not use quotation marks, but it is followed by a citation after the ending punctuation. In shorter papers, long quotations are not advised. If there's no date, then use initials. Next, we're going to talk about references for APA style. The first bullet is the general form for APA style references. Be sure to use a hanging indent and alphabetize your references by the author's last names. If there's no author, then you use the first name of the title other than A, N, or the. The author is listed as their last name and then the initial of their first name. Separate the author's names with commas when you have multiple authors. With 2 to 7 authors, use an ampersand before the last author's name. If there's 8 or more authors, list the first 6 authors, 3 ellipsis dots, and the last author's name. A book with an editor and no author, you can use the editor's name in place of the author. For example, Aronson J and Aronson E. EDS. That shows that these are the editor's names. For the date, you list the year. If the periodical is published monthly, then include the month. If it is published weekly, include the month and day. 2 or more works by the same author, you list in the date order with the earliest first. For all title of books, they must be italicized. You capitalize the first letter of the title, first letter of the word after a colon, proper words, and the first letter of a title within the title. All the other words should not be capitalized. Also, place edition numbers after the title in parentheses. If a book has an author and an editor, editor's name is in parentheses after the title. When including publication information for periodicals such as journals, magazines, and newspapers, you include the name of the periodical, the volume, and the page numbers. In journals and magazines, you include the page numbers with no reference words. For the names of journals and magazines, always italicize. After the journal or magazine name, place a comma, space, volume number, issue number in parentheses, second comma, page numbers with no spaces, and end punctuation. Finally, you list the digital object identifier, which is where you found the article. As mentioned before, references should have a hanging indent. This is how you would do so in Word 2010. You click on your ruler at the top of the page where you see your hourglass. The bottom half of the hourglass can be clicked and dragged to where you would like the hanging indent. Another way to do this, you can select the line where you would like to insert the hanging indent, right-click, select paragraph, and then select hanging, such as in the image to the right. This way you can select your hanging indent and the exact amount that you would like it to be indented by. In your references, you often have to break up URL or DOI. When a URL must be divided, you break it after a double slash or before any other mark of punctuation. Do not insert a hyphen and do not add a period at the end. This is the end of the presentation. I hope you learned a lot about APA style.